I've been looking at the last 3 months and what is changing because of COVID, apart from all the survival, the fear of survival that we have and all the pivoting that goes on. And I think there's four basic things I want to share with you. And we've had lots of debate about this in the preparation for this event, right? First, it's really quite clear that as we're moving into this future, there is total and utter uncertainty, right? And this is creating a paradigm change because when we have uncertainty, we're more ready to make a leap, right? To go into a different direction. So this is clearly going to make a difference for us. Also, when John, let me just mute your mic. Okay, sorry. So when we talk about this, we're going into a direction where we're saying, okay, how can we understand this uncertainty and how can we get beyond it? And I think really what we have to see is that 2020 is a total change of program. It's a change of program in terms of our priorities, in terms of what we have rediscovered, solidarity, connecting to each other, the importance of people, and so on. And this is really impacting all industries, including tourism and of course airlines and flying, because some things will just be switched off, right? Some programs will not continue, like I believe cruise ships will not continue. That's a program that's ending, right? And then there's other programs, like my own program, going off to faraway places and giving keynotes. And now this program is changing, right? It's pivoting. It's completely different. Great cartoon I saw the other day. I think this will enlighten us a little bit as to what's happening here, right? In this change of program, first wave is COVID. And that isn't over, obviously. I'll talk about that shortly. And that's followed by a recession or by economic reset, which we're currently looking at. And then the real big wave behind this is climate change. Right? I mean, think about the logic. Think about the logic. If we are willing to sacrifice because of health reasons and we stay at home or we wear a mask or, we don't travel, are we going to be willing to do the same thing for climate change? I think it's the same logic, right? It has to be done, and now we must do it, and we do it for the common good. And the government is telling us what to do. So that's a huge paradigm shift that's becoming possible to do something that was considered impossible before. And it's really quite clear when we look at the world around us, we're not going back to normal. I mean, whatever normal was, we're not going back to a world that's going to be unlocked and be like a year ago. We're going forward to a new normal, a with Corona normal, with issues future. Right? And also, I think, really important point, we don't really want to go back to a future to a past that has failed us. Right? A lot of the normal of the past wasn't good. Inequality, bad healthcare systems, and we see the countries that were struggling before, now they're really struggling, right? US, UK, Brazil, South Africa. The normal has failed us. Look at these stats here, right? I mean, the anomalies in temperature that you can see here, mind-boggling how that has changed over the years. The CO2 emissions, of course, led by China and the United States, right? And climate refugees, after 4 degrees global warming, that's basically the entire southern hemisphere. And clearly we're going to see a lot of changes coming there. It's about the billionaires, that have created this huge inequality. 2,153 billionaires hold more wealth than the poorest 4.6 billion combined. And now we're feeling it. Now we're actually understanding what that means, right? Great quote here from Mariana Mazzucato from the World Economic Forum. She says, a killer virus has exposed more major weaknesses within the capitalist economies. We have the opportunity to fix the system. Right? If we don't do that, then we have no chance against the next major crisis, another pandemic, artificial intelligence, geoengineering, climate change. So this is the mindset right now. The narrative is changing, and I can feel that changing. I give many speeches per week now here online. I can feel that feedback coming back from people. And I think it's really important that we embrace this idea of what's coming next. I call this a great transformation. And over the last 3 months, we've worked on some graphics here internally for, saying what is the great transformation? What does it mean? And we've come up with a globe here, right? And this, I think you'll appreciate this. The things that's on top, right? In the past, cruise ships and the global economy and oil and gas and Bitcoin and banking. And now all of a sudden in this crisis, we are switching this entire pyramid around, right? And before you know it, new things are on the top. And if we don't get this, I think it's going to have dire consequences for your career and your thinking and your company, but also, of course, for your community. Right now, it's all about remote working. We are supposed to stay there. It's all about the stuff that is changing, right? It's about healthcare. It's about connecting. Right? It's about government. Right? Bottom line in this great transformation, I think it is a crisis. Let's make no doubt about that. And we have to first and foremost survive. But it's also opportunity to reboot how we're thinking about the world. Right? And this is how we're thinking about the world now. And it's pretty straightforward, right? COVID is egging on this chain reaction of things, right? Big tech, big media, big state, big government, big healthcare, and finally, big green. Right? For some reason, I think that is driving the discussion about what is next with climate change. Right? Those are gigantic opportunities. I also think that in terms of unemployment, we may be seeing more unemployment in the future. That's quite clear. But if we put the money in the right place here, we're going to see many, many new jobs here in big health and big green and, of course, big state. Right? And technology is the driver behind all of those things. So when we look a little bit further of this with technology, I just want to give a quick warning here that I think when we're thinking about technology, we have to be very careful of too much of a good thing that can be a very bad thing. You know, it can be a present, but it can also be a bomb, right? It can be a situation where we're saying, well, you know, this could be a gift to us and we can just enjoy it, right? But at the same time, if we do too much of it, it turns into a major problem, into kind of a bomb. And I have no idea why the bomb isn't playing, but it's supposed to be a bomb. You know, this is the way it goes. Talking about a bomb, right? You see here on the left, Hiroshima, and you see on top of that, the nuclear non-proliferation treaties that were reached about, I think, 14 years later, I think 1962 actually, so quite a bit of time later, right? We had to have a bomb to react on the threat, right? and to do something about it and to come up with a moratorium. And I think it's going to be very much the same thing when we kind of have a healthcare bomb now. And will we see others? Clearly climate change is of that nature, but in my view, it's quite clear. We cannot wait until we have reason and proof anymore. We barely survived that with the nuclear bomb. If we're going to survive that with climate change or with AI or genetic engineering, right, we have to be proactive, right? And we have to think about what that means for our future before it actually happens. Right? So it brings me to my third point, and that is many things that we thought of as unthinkable are actually possible now. Right? We didn't think it was possible people were going to get a basic income for most of the year. We didn't think it possible to regulate everything like this, but now we do, and basically in this regard, we're going to see carbon taxes. Right? We're going to see carbon taxes for flying. We're going to see carbon taxes for meat. Right? We're going to see the things that were unthinkable. And so let's forget about what wasn't thinkable. Let's think about what we need to do. For example, in climate change, it's quite clear for the rise of 1.5 degrees that it would need to fall 7.6% per year for the next decade. That's more than we have right now involuntarily because of COVID-19. We'd have to have more stringent restrictions than we have right now. And I think that's going to be a tall order. I mean, going back to what I said about meat, right? I mean, this chart kind of shows what's happening. We're going into cultured meat and novel vegan meat replacement and all of these things. That goes for the same discussion. Maybe the future is vegetarian. I'm not vegetarian, but maybe I'll have to change in the future. I'm not big on meat, so it wouldn't be that difficult for me. But this is one of the things where the story is changing, the paradigm is changing. Do we really need this? Can we make voluntary contributions to our future? So clearly in this world, where we're moving into this sort of pivoting moment, I often say it's either the Green Deal, what's called the Green Deal in the US and also in Europe, the European Green Deal, and of course in New Zealand, which has been wide discussion and of course realization also of this, either the Green Deal or a done deal, right? We're not going to survive a situation where we don't pay attention to this. I mean, clearly, I think that's kind of a must-see for our future. Capitalism, John talked about this before. it's really quite clear that traditional capitalism is unfit for the future. And I'm not saying that we're going to have an alternative that we know about right now in terms of, socialism practices or other economic logics, but we have to mutate capitalism, right? Sustainable capitalism, post-capitalism. I mean, if we're looking at the stats, pretty straightforward. I mean, the probability of losing a job because of COVID-19 is the highest for the people who don't make the most money, right? I mean, it's quite clear this is a tough spot to be, and that's not much money, and everybody else who makes more money is going to be safer, right? It's this kind of inequality that's driving a huge change. John talked about this already. It's quite clear people are going to be pushed into poverty, especially in the US and Brazil, India, Russia, and so on. And this stat should really give you something to think about when you look about what's happening in America with inequality. I mean, this is why we have all the issues in the US. This is why the US is kind of a dysfunctional country now. And to wrap it up with a quote here by Al Gore, right? He says, as economies are ready to reopen, we should not go back to pre-pandemic thinking. Right? We need to think about something that is after the pandemic. Right? What is desperately needed, he says, and what we must deliver is a sustainable form of capitalism. How do we do that? Well, we have to play. Right? We have to experiment. We have to go away from this kind of thinking. I call this ecosystems, right? Closed bubbles, and that is closed countries, closed economies, closed jobs, closed companies. It's all about switching to ecosystem, to a new way of thinking. I think John was alluding to that as well, and we'll discuss it shortly, how we can build this kind of idea of large things collaborating. Here's a great quote from the CEO of Salesforce, Mr. Benioff, Mark Benioff, talking about what is happening with capitalism.
Capitalism, as we have known it, is dead. And this obsession that we have with maximizing profits for shareholders alone has led to incredible inequality and a planetary emergency.
Well, I do hope you were able to hear this, but Mark is a pretty amazing guy. Capitalism, as we know it, is dead. And this has been echoed by so many people. It's not dead because it wasn't working, it's dead because it's not fit for the future. And whatever we're going to end up calling it, we're going to have to reinvent our economic logic. We're going to have to think about which way we want to go. We have to think about what we want. I mean, this illustration shows that different countries have different emphasis, right? From the sort of corporate capitalism of America to the social capitalism of Europe, and sometimes it's called the data capitalism, the state capitalism of China, right? So what is the right system? And of course, I live in Europe, and I quite admire what is happening lately in Europe. Despite all the troubles, we found a way forward to show solidarity for each other, and that is called the social capitalism. I think that's the winning ticket, and in many ways, New Zealand is following the same direction. And we have to think about how we can actually enlarge this and bring it forward to the world. So as we think about capitalism, much has been said in the past about different paradigm, and now in the US you have a stakeholder debate versus a shareholder debate. And so I use this animation here to kind of show what's happening is that we need to think about 4 different streams of things at the same time, not just financial benefit, and that is people, planet, purpose, and prosperity. It's a quadruple bottom line. The Sustainable Development Goals are talking about people, planet, profit, and I will enlarge a little bit by adding purpose, by creating something that we want to live for. And I think that's kind of the paradigm for the future. How do we put that into place? Well, we're going to discuss it later, and we'll solve the problem very quickly. Europe, right? Great story. I think what is happening in Europe, we have finally come around to solidarity. There's been a huge rescue package. Italy stands to get 100 billion euros, and Spain and Portugal and Greece and so on. Not very many questions asked, some to be paid back, but basically unlimited solidarity. And I think what we're seeing unfolding right now is indeed the sort of United States of Europe. And I have great hopes for that, even though I live in Switzerland, but I am from Germany originally, for that to become the default mode of collaboration, right, of playing to figure out the future. The heart of state, right? What is the heart of state of the European Commission? Well, it's mostly women, right? When you look at the lineup on top, it's a really interesting story. Right? So, I think it's really, when we look at the future, also a huge shift of paradigm. You know, Merkel, the German chancellor, said for a long time, she will never give free money to Italy that doesn't have to be paid back, or the southern states, right? And now we have it. We're changing our mind, right? We need unconditional, almost, right, to a large degree, solidarity, or we have a collective demise. You know, what do you prefer? And this is the question that we must ask. Is it going to be solidarity, or is it going to be collective demise, right? And that goes, for example, for education. If you're looking at this really scary chart from the United Nations, you know, we need to figure out how we're going to teach our kids. And it can't be an 8-year-old in Rio de Janeiro in a slum looking at an iPad for going to school. That doesn't work, right? I mean, huge digital divide here. This is a problem that we need to solve urgently, right? Just as one of those collective issues. So let me wrap up by saying we're going into a new world, right? We're going into a world where everybody has to pivot. And there's 4 things in the water, right? Inequality, that's a little rubber raft on the top, you know, with more people, rich people keeping the benefits of everything and not being touched by COVID. The change of capitalism, that's the kraken there, right? Climate change, and of course the virus itself. And those are opportunities, they are challenges, but they're also opportunities to rethink what we want. The key question about the future, after all, is this, right? What do we want? Do we want to go back to business as usual? No, I think business as usual is not working. It hasn't really worked. It worked for some. Now it's business as unusual, or it's a new way of defining business. And that is the paradigm shift I'm talking about. I think this is a great opportunity for brands, for companies, for ourselves to make that shift. So a final word on this. As we're going into this future and thinking about what kind of world do we want, right? This is a question I ask myself. What kind of future do you want your children to have? If you don't have children, think about somebody else's children. Right? What kind of world are we going to give to people? Right? This is a question that we can and must ask right now, because now is kind of reset moment. It's the moment where you go to therapy the first time and you realize, wow, you know, now it's getting real. So thanks very much for your attention. We're going to go back.